So, hello everyone, welcome. So, let's wait for others to join. There are some people left to join. Then we will start. Because nobody's saying anything, that's why you cannot hear anything. Just wait, and we're waiting for others to join, then we will start. So, good afternoon again, once, guys. Let us start. The others will join. Most of the class already here. So, today we're going to go through the chapter that we have already covered. It was the last chapter. The last chapter we covered was consumer and the producer surplus. If you remember, we're gonna go over it. Some end of chapter questions. And by the way, just let me share the screen with you. Now, first thing before I start lecturing, I would like to tell there's a quiz trial. So at the end of the lecture today, you will get some quiz to try it. I will give you the time you will do it and submit it. And I'll get the feedback from you. Apart from that, then I will have a real quiz. The real quiz will take the place on Thursday. So on Thursday, you're gonna have the real quiz, which will be on the Moodle based as well. So today you will try your best. We'll see what pitfalls and anything that lags that need to be added and need to be changed, you'll make it today. And I think there will be no problem with it. You will see it. We'll try our best. It is at the end of the class. So coming to the chapter end of questions, here we go. So we will proceed with the question review. Like there are 5 questions, we'll go quickly to review them, and then we'll start. So starting with first question, with the question for review. Guys, one thing that I want to tell you, if you don't understand anything, that if you think that I'm fast and explain, just unmute your microphone and ask the question. Don't hesitate on this. So we'll start with this question. Question for review is the first question. In the first question for review, it says that explain how the buyer's willingness to pay, the consumer surplus, and the demand curve are related to each other. So before giving some explanation to this, you have to make a notation that what is the buyer's willingness to pay? What does it mean? Buyer's willingness to pay. So what does it mean? First of all, buyer's willingness to pay, it is showing how much the buyer or the customer is wishing or desiring to pay for a certain product. So it shows you the maximum price. It shows maximum price that the buyers will pay for it. This is all about willingness to pay. And apart from that, it measures the consumer surplus. It shows, but how do we relate to the demand curve? This is another question. How do we relate to the demand curve? So the price a buyer is willing to pay is the consumer surplus. That's great. So we say at the end, we're measuring surplus. And demand curve are all closely related. Why? Because we know that there is a relationship between the quantity demanded and the price. As the price increases, the quantity demanded fall. As the price increases, the consumer surplus will fall. This is the relationship it shows. So the height of the demand curve represents the willingness to pay of the buyers. So the height of the demand curve represents the willingness to pay. This is for the question that we are reviewing. So the measuring the consumer willingness to pay and demand curve, they're all downward sloping. There is an inverse relationship. And coming to the second question, this is the first question, how it's related. We just reviewed it. And explain how the seller cost produces surplus and the supply curve are related. How the seller's cost. So seller's cost is the minimum willingness price that the seller is willing to sell, is the minimum price that the seller puts that he will sell at this price, not lower than this. So anything above that, he will get a surplus, which is called a producer surplus. So supply curve and the producer surplus are closely related. The height of the supplier curve represents the cost of the sellers. So producer surplus, if we want to draw it both, and for the second question, willingness to sell, it is the producer surplus. But if we draw it on the diagram, this is supply curve, this is demand curve, this is demand curve. And of course, we have equilibrium. And equilibrium price is here. And this is equilibrium quantity. So this is price, and this is quantity. So as we can see, this is the basics of about the demand supply, where the supply and demand are equal, they're both buyers and sellers are satisfied. And the price, above the price, we have the consumer surplus. So it's a consumer surplus is here in this region. And below the P is the producer surplus. So this is the region that represents the consumer surplus. This is the region that represents the producer surplus, which means that consumers are willing to pay maximum price. They will not pay anything above what goes above beyond their wishes. And the sellers, they will pay minimum price to produce something to sell it. So the higher they sell it, the more benefit they get it. Just opposite of the buyers. This is how the quantity demanded is equal to the quantity supplied, where the consumer surplus and producer surplus are maximized. So at equilibrium point, consumer surplus and producer surplus are maximized at equilibrium point. Oops, sorry. Redo it. Consumer and producer surplus at equilibrium point. So consumer and producer surplus maximized at equilibrium. So this is the point that is represented by equilibrium. We can call it as E point. Okay, this is the question that we're reviewing for 1 and 2, 3. I will save it, this screenshot, and I can erase it. So coming to the question 4, what is the efficiency, and is the goal only of economic policymakers to have the efficiency of the market? We know that in a perfect competitive market, that if a market is perfectly competitive, that all the sellers are selling the identical products and the buyers, and we know that in a perfect competitive market, the buyers and the sellers, they do not determine the price. The price and quantity is determined by itself. So efficiency in economy, it means in here to have allocation of resources in an efficient way. We know that markets basically has got their job or responsibility to allocate all the limited resources among the buyers. So to help the sellers to find the buyers. This is the job of the market. And to make it efficiently, the economy should be in an efficiency position. So the question is asked in here, is it only the goal of economic policy makers to have efficiencies in economy? So let me put it down. And here we can make it, so we are answering the question that efficiency is when consumer surplus and producer surplus is maximized, meaning that allocation of resources are done efficiently, However, the question in here, does it mean that policymakers are only interested in efficiency of economy only? Of course, answering the question, it is no. Another matter that efficiency is not only the goal of policymakers. This is another concern. Another issue that the policymakers are interested in is equality. Equality is the uniform distribution of the economic prosperity. So they want to be sure that the prosperity of economic condition in the country is distributed uniformly among the society, of course. So another issue is equality. Distribution of economic prosperity. Prosperity among people. So, and do you have any question, guys? If you're silent, then it means you don't have. You can just write in the chat if you want, or you can just unmute your microphone and ask it in a louder basis. Okay, great. Let's move to the last question in question reviewing. Everything is clear. That's perfect. Name 2 types of market failure. So we have basically 2 different types of market failure. 2 market failures are market power and externalities. So these are 2 types of market failure. Why the market power and externalities considered to be market failure? First of all, we need to define what is the market power and what is the externality. Market power, it is showing ability of the seller or the buyer to influence on the price, like it is creating a monopolistic atmosphere in the market. We know that in a perfect competition, that economy is running efficiently, allocation of resources done efficiently, producer surplus and the consumer surplus are maximized. But when it comes to the market power, it is the vice versa. The producers and the consumer surplus is not maximized, is violated. The market is not running efficiently, is shown that inefficiency because market power takes away the price equilibrium, the price and the quantity from its equilibrium point. This is the market power, because if the price equilibrium is $5, then the market power may influence and make it to $10. That will make a big negative impact on the buyers, because it will create a shortage of the product and the sellers try to make a higher revenue. That will create a shortage of the products, where will at the consequences will come up with a big queue of the buyers. That happened in 1970s when oil shock took the place. Just forget about the coming to the 1970s. Today's the oil price hit its lowest point ever. It hit to $18. Now in here we have not a supply shock, but we have a demand shock. So it is below its equilibrium. So this type of heat, the oil barrel for $80, it represents that external factors affect. So now we are coming to the externalities. The externalities, that's something that cannot be controlled by the buyers and the sellers. Another example I can give you, the pollution. Pollution of air, pollution of the water, pollution of the products, and everything that it's out of the control of the buyers and the sellers, that it affects the production quantity, it affects the production quality. And of course, it destroys the economy. It makes the economy to face a market failure. So this is, we can say we reviewed the whole chapter. Now is the time to go to solve the questions. Let me save it. By the way, these screenshots are available in the Moodle. All are available in the Moodle, so you can just use them like a whiteboards. Okay, now I can just close it. Coming to the question. It's multiple choice. Okay, here's the question. Melissa buys an iPhone for $120 and gets a consumer surplus of $80. Okay. What is her willingness to pay then if her consumer willingness is $80? Who can tell me? Write in chat. What should be the price? Any idea? What is her willingness to pay if she gets $80? 200. Very good, Rufina. Very good. So $120 plus 80 will give you $200, which will show the maximum willingness to pay for it. So question 1, part A. $120 plus 80, it will give us $200. Or if maximum willingness to pay is given, and how much will be her consumer plus surplus, if you know how much money you pay for it, then you can find it in a vice versa. That's great. So coming to the question B, if she had bought the iPhone on sale for $90, she bought it for $90, what would be her consumer surplus? You already wrote it. Very good. Those who are acting in advance. 200 minus 90 will give you 110. Good, Aidana. And Isa is very nice. It's good that you really followed me. 110. So how we derive it? We derive it from the maximum willingness to pay. Minus $90. The price of it will give us a consumer surplus, which is $110. If the price of iPhone were 250, what would be her consumer surplus? Part C. What do we expect to be the consumer surplus? If, read it carefully, guys. Don't rush with your answers. If the price of an iPhone were $250, do not forget that her maximum willingness to pay is $200. What does it mean? The maximum willingness to pay, that she will not buy anything that is beyond $200. So what is the consumer surplus in the case if the price is $250? That means there is no consumer surplus. Very good. This is, we answered question 1. Okay. An early, let's go with the question 2. An early freeze in California soars the lemon crop. Explain what happens to the consumer surplus in the market for lemons. First of all, let me draw it to have clear illustration what's going on in the market. Remember, guys, whenever you have such question, it is better to draw to be more clear what you are doing and what will be the consequences of changes of something. So this is supply, this is demand, supply, demand. Look at here, what it says, an early freeze in California soars the lemon crop. So the lemon quantity production reduced. Explain what happens to the consumer surplus in the market for lemons. So before answering what will happen to the consumer surplus, remember what will happen to the supply of the lemon. So this is the supply of lemon. If there's a problem in the crop of lemon, which means the agriculture sector will not produce as much lemon as used to produce before. So the quantity will be reduced. If quantity is reduced, that means that the supply curve will shift right or left. Left. Very good. So new supply will be here. S1. New supply is here. So if you draw it, equilibrium price in here, equilibrium quantity here. So this black area with the black lines, it is the consumer surplus now. However, when the supply shifts leftward, there is a new equilibrium. An equilibrium will be new with a new supply here. So what happens to the consumer surplus? Look at here. The consumer surplus reduced to this amount. And what happens to the producer surplus? Is it increased or decreased? It's reduced as well, because the problem in agriculture sector, the lemon crop source reduces. Okay, this is one thing related to crop. There's another question. Explain what happens to the consumer surplus in the market for lemonade. Remember that what is the ingredient, the main ingredient of the lemonade? Lemon itself. As the quantity of the lemon reduced and the price of the lemon increased, what will happen to the lemonade sector? It will be reduced as well. So the same story will happen. Consumer surplus will go down. This is question 2. Any questions, any concerns, that anything that you couldn't understand? Shall I move to the third question? So the third I'm skipping, I'm gonna move to the question number 4, more calculation.
Sorry, Professor.
Yes, please.
It means that people won't buy any lemonade, yes?
No, they will buy, but the quantity will be reduced, as you can see here.
And the price will increase, yes?
Very true. The price increases and the quantity, oops. The price increases and the quantity falls. And that reduces the consumer surplus.
Thank you.
Okay, let me save it. This was question 2. Okay, saved it, and I can erase it. Let's move. Now we're coming to the question 4, which is a very good question. Now, it is the hot day and Bert is thirsty. Here is the value that he places on each bottle of the water he would like to drink it. The value of the first bottle he values as $7. The value of the second bottle, $5. The value of the third bottle, $3. And the value of the fourth bottle is $1. From this information, please derive the Bert's demand schedule. Graph his demand curve for bottled water as well. So first of all, we need to get the schedule and then draw the demand curve. So in here, now, first we will write a table. Price and quantity. Price and quantity. Then this is what we are doing. We are deriving a demand schedule, okay? Not a diagram. First, we need to derive a demand schedule. So the maximum willingness of paying for one bottle of water is $7. So which means that anything above $7, the Bert is not going to buy. So here what we are doing, more than $7, the quantity will be 0. So this is like this. Why it shouldn't be 1? No. Look, guys, this is buyer. Put yourself into the shoes buyers. The maximum price that you put a value for a water is $7, not more than this for the first bottle of water. If it goes above $7, you will say, no, I will not buy because the maximum value I'm given is $7, not more than this. You're a buyer, not a seller. Is it clear, Islam, now? Then, let's continue. If price goes from $5 to $7, then you will consume 1. You will say you will consume 1. So going from $3 to $5, from 3 to 5, will make the Bert to consume 2 bottles. Then going from $1 to $3, from 1 to 3, it will make the bear to consume 3 bottles. So the lower the price, so remember guys, it's showing maximum willingness. If as the price goes down, the more consumer surplus the bird is getting. So we put maximum and minimum. Minimum, it means for the 4th bottle, he will pay. So anything less than $1, so 1 or less, the bird will consume 4 bottles. The quantity 4. This is, we constructed, this is part A, we can say. Part A. Demand schedule. Now, we are asked to graph the demand curve for bottle as well. So let's graph it. Here. This is quantity. And we can make it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Draw it above. And this is 7. So this is 1. This is 2. 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. This is price that we're talking. This all represents the price, the y-axis. And we have x-axis, it represents the quantity. And the quantity is, we have maximum 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. One, 2, 3, and 4. Now we are asked to draw it. If you go, in order to draw it, you have to follow just this schedule. If the price was $7 here, let me get this drawing things. If the price was $7, okay, then you will consume 0 quantity. But if the price falls below the 7, if it's between 5 and 7, the quantity consumption will be 1. So if the price between 5 and 7, the quantity consumption will be 1. So we're just connecting. Okay. If price between 3 and 5, the quantity will be 2. So here, 3 and 5, quantity will be 2. If the price between 1 and 3, the quantity will be 3. And we're connecting. And if the price between 1 to the 0, the quantity will be 4. Okay. Do you have any question how to draw it? Did you understand how did I draw according to the demand schedule? This is showing the willingness to pay, showing the demand curve for the bottle of water for the bird. So this is part A. Coming to the part B. Coming to part B. So part B. If the price of the bottled water is $4, how many bottles does the bread buy? And how much consumer surplus does the bird get from his purchase? Show the bird's consumer surplus in your graph. Now, first of all, answer the question. If the price of bottle is $4, how many bottles does the bird buy? Just go follow our schedule. If it's 4, it is between 3 and 5, which means he will buy 2 bottles of water. Very true. And what will be the consumer surplus? 7 minus 4. Very true. Because it's the maximum willingness to pay. And how much is the real price, actual price? Just the difference will give you the consumer surplus. Very true. So 2 bottles of water will be purchased. Bird buys 2 bottles of water and his consumer price is shown in the area A. We need to draw it. So if we draw it here, but let me finish it. How many? 7 minus 4 will give you 3 consumer surplus. It's not only okay. Another question. Once we understood there's a $3 of consumer surplus, he's valuing only the first bottle of water. Can you tell me what is the value of the second bottle of the water? It's $5, but the price he pays is just $4, which means does he have to get any surplus as well on it from the second bottle? From the first bottle, he gets $3. And from the second bottle, he will get the consumer surplus 5 minus 4, 1 from second one. In total, how much consumer surplus he gets? $4. $3 for the first and 1 for the second one. Very true. Very true. So so this part is $3 and this part is $1. Did you get? So this rectangle, let me do it like this. This rectangle is $3 consumer surplus, and this square is $1. In total, they get $4 as consumer surplus. When the price of each bottled water, this is B. Coming to the part C. C. If the price falls to $2, how does the quantity demanded change? And how does the BERT consumer surplus change? And show these changes on the graph as well. So what will be the consumer surplus? How it will affect? So first, what is the quantity demanded will be? If it falls to $2, tell me. It falls from 4 to 2 here. The quantity demanded will increase to 3. Then what will be the consumer surplus? $7. How did you calculate? 7 minus 2. It is from first bottle of water. 7 minus 2. Seven minus 2, 5. Then, what about from second bottle? How much he gets? Look at here, by logic, guys, by graph. Always just graph it. Price falls here. Make it blue. This is second. So the consumer surplus from the first bottle is 5. Then the consumer surplus from second bottle, 5 minus 2 is equal to 3. This is the region. And the consumer surplus from the third bottle is equal to is just following same principle, 3 minus 2, 1. In total, consumer surplus is equal to 9. Okay, this is part C. Let me save it. Do you have any questions? Anything you want to add, guys? Anything you want to comment or you didn't understand?
How it's become 9?
Look, what is the maximum price we're willing to pay? It's $7, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And what is the price it falls to? It falls to $2. Is true?
Mm-hmm.
So the difference between 7 and 2 is 5. So the $5, as you see from these lines, this rectangle, like lines down, It's showing the $5 of value for the consumer surplus for the first bottle. Okay. What about for the second bottle? We said
It will be 3.
It will be 3. From 5 minus 2, 3. What about for the third bottle? It will be 1. In total, they're gonna have 9. Are you with me now?
No.
Look at here. Okay. Let me explain this way. Now, when the price was maximum $7 and it falls to $2. How many bottles this person will consume? Quantity, tell me.
5.
We don't have that much quantity. Bottles, not the consumer surplus. Bottles of waters. How many consumer of bottle of water he will consume at $2?
2.
3.
Look at the demand schedule, guys. From 1 to 3, he will consume. If the price from 1 to 3, he will consume just 3 quantity of bottled water. Yes. Okay. We have 3 bottles of water. First, in first bottle of water, how much value of consumer surplus he will get it from the first bottle of water? Seven minus 2, he will get 5 consumer surplus, isn't it? From the first. For the second one, look, he falls to this range. He was in this range. Now he falls to the second range. Now he's here. From the first consumer surplus, he consumed this. Okay? Now, in this range, from 5, in this range, maximum value for the second bottle of water, he is given $5. But the price falls to
$3.
no, to $2. The price is $2. So, which means for the second bottle of water, he will get how much? 5 minus 2 will be the $3. Second bottle of water. But he falls to another range. To the third range. We said he will consume 3 bottles of water here. He falls to this range. The price falls in this range. He says that I will pay the maximum price for the third bottle of water, $3, but he pays only $2 in actual price. That means he pays less. That he saves $1. So he gets $1 as consumer price surplus. So $1, 3 minus 2 will give you 1/3. In total, consumer surplus will be equal to 5 plus 3 plus 1, 9.
How? 1 plus 3 plus 1, it will be... no. Okay. I got it.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, do you have any questions? Okay, let us move then. Okay, somebody's writing, let me see. Amir is saying fail. Okay, Amir. By the way, Isabzal is here. I didn't see him today. What about the midterm 2? I'm gonna discuss about it. Let's write the quiz first of all, then we're gonna discuss about the midterm 2. Quiz, we're gonna have it next week. Oh, sorry, not next week. This Thursday. This Thursday. Quiz number 3. So quiz 3 will be Thursday. And it will include only one chapter. It was chapter 6. The question will be multiple choice questions. So the quiz 3 will be Thursday, this Thursday, chapter 6. Okay, then let me erase this. Okay, let us move to the question number 4. No, 4 we did it just now. Question number 5. You know, the question number 5, I prefer to give it to you as I will start it. We'll prepare the schedule and everything. And then I will ask you to do the rest as homework and send it to me. So question number 5. Ernie owns a water pump because the pumping large amounts of the water is harder than pumping a small amounts. The cost of producing of bottled water rises as he pumps more. Here's the cost that he incurs to produce each bottled water. The cost of the first bottled water is $1. Cost of second one, 3, 5, and 7. So in here is just opposite what we have done in question number 4. So the willingness to produce each bottle, the first bottle is $1. If anything goes less than this, he will not produce anything. If it goes above, he will produce 3 and 5 and 7. So in question A, they ask you to draw the supply schedule and graph the supply curve for bottled water. So here, price, here, quantity. If price $7 or more, if the price is $7 or more, this guy will produce 4 bottles. If the price is from 5 to 7, this guy is going to produce 3 bottles of water. If the price from 3 to 5, this guy is going to produce, he's going to pump 2. And if the price from 1 to 3 is going to pump 1. And if it's 1 or less, the quantity of the bottle will be equal to 0. This is how the quantity goes. Okay. Now, we are asked to draw it, the supply graph. So how it's drawn, and we know it's an upward sloping, we need to draw upward. So when it's 1 here, when it's 1, it means that they will pump one quantity here. 1 is 1. 1 and 1. So until here. And which means from 1 to 3. From 1 to 3. So we'll draw it until 3 here. This is 3. Between this 2. This is 3. If it goes from 1 to 3, they will pump one quantity. If it goes from 3 to 5, they will pump quantity 2. So from 3 to 5. Here's the 5. And we'll connect this part. If it goes from 5 to 7, 7 is here, let's say. The quantity will be 3. Here. We'll connect. And if it's 7 and more, four. Here. And it goes like this. So this showing, let me just put the 7 here. Now, this is supply curve. This is schedule for supply. So the same questions related to the producer surplus. I'm expecting from you to finish it and write it to me. Okay? You will write it to me and send it to me by WhatsApp, by hand. Okay, once you understood everything, if there is no question, I will ask you to proceed. I will save this in Moodle. You can follow up. And these are the question B and C. You can send it to me before Thursday, guys. I'm waiting from you before Thursday. Now I want you to try a trial quiz, which is in Moodle. So here you go. Go and sign it and try to. So there are 2 questions. Solve it and submit. It will ask you the password. The password is fin2105. Password of the quiz. Do it and submit now. It's a trial quiz. You will get some bonuses for it. But the real quiz, you will get it on Thursday from chapter 6. This chapter that we solved today is not included, only chapter 6 that we did it the week before the last week.
Could you repeat the password? Fin one
It,
from
it,
1
it,
to 5?
Fin, you cannot see you. Don't you see it? Fin to 105.
Ah, okay. So,
I'm sharing here.
okay.
Dear Sultan, what do you mean? How to find? The quiz is here in Moodle. So do it and submit.